open today, talk about Missouri, and I think Eli's done a tremendous job up there. The quarterback's playing really well. They've caught a really good rhythm, scoring a lot of points. Played really good defense most of the year. Their defensive personnel is one of the best we've probably played against. They do a lot of different things than people in our conference defensively and create a lot of problems. But winning the last 5 out of 6 games, great momentum. It's a great opportunity to play a really good team on the road in the SEC, and I know our guys are excited about it.
All right, let's take your questions. Let's first start out with Seth Emerson and then Dean Legge.
First off, Kirby, can you hear me?
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. I wanted to ask a two-part scheduling question off of this season and for future schedules. There's a lot of people talking about, like, they love only conference scheduling, more conference games. First off, your thoughts on that, and also your thoughts on how non-conference scheduling is historically done so many years in advance that now people are saying, look, you can schedule games on the fly and quicker. Do you think there will be any long-term changes as a result of this season?
Hard to speculate. My mind certainly hadn't been in the scheduling format lately with so much other things going on and on our plate. So I haven't thought a lot about it. I certainly, I love the conference games. I love the ability to play, every team possibly in a shorter span. But I also love the traditional, the rivalry games, the outside the conference rivalry games, the cross-conference games, playing a team once every 2 years, every now and then, and getting an out-of-conference team. So I like both of those in terms of it. I certainly think it makes for a tough physical season. I would love to see a schedule like that, whether it was all conference and then a couple Power 5 crossover games where we had a true off season to condition our guys and get them prepared for the physicality of what we've had this year. But as far as in terms of the time span it takes to schedule those games, I think those games are scheduled so far out so that people can account for their money and their revenue and know how many home games I'm going to have, how many away games I'm going to have, and doing it last minute makes it a lot tougher. But people have done it successfully this year. I agree with you, but it's not necessarily because of financial reasons. We like to have things set in stone in terms of the financial reasons.
Hey, Kirby, they've scored 91 points in their last 2 games combined. Excuse me. And you talked about this earlier with the quarterback. Is this a challenge or an opportunity for your defense?
Well, it's both. Every challenge is an opportunity, and their quarterback's playing at a high level. He understands coverages, looks. Eli does a great job of having passing game situations where, based on the look he gets, he can get really easy, soft zone throws. He does a good job completing those, and they get yards after the catch. He does a good job with shots down the field, which they've been able to hit off of their play actions. And anytime you've got the backs they've got the run game built in to where they can take shots down the field, do a great job. And I just got a lot of respect for the quarterback because he's got great composure and accuracy. Just does a really good job in the pocket. He throws a very catchable ball.
Let's go to Anthony Dasher and then Mike Griffith.
Hey, Coach. Can you speak to the disappointment level of the seniors, not getting to have a game last week? And I know it's early and all that, but just wondering what your confidence level is that they will have that opportunity in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell on that. That's kind of in the past. It's Friday. We found out. I hate it. It is what it is. And not a lot that anybody can control in that situation because it's out of our control really completely. And some of it's out of their control. So just not a lot you can do about it. I think, obviously our players wanted to play and wanted to play, at home. And as to the 19th, you'd have to ask Vanderbilt that. I don't know that.
Thanks.
Kirby, how did you keep your players' spirits up? I can't imagine the level of frustration when you work so hard all week to be focused on a game and it suddenly gets, taken out from under you. How are you keeping your players' spirits up, keeping them engaged, amid those kind of circumstances? It happened a couple times in the last month now.
Yeah, you do the best you can. You just tell them honestly the information you've been given, and pretty simple. We tell them that we can't control everything that happens, and try to be honest with them and take advantage of the opportunities you get. Don't take anything for granted. We told them that at Mississippi State. You can't take anything for granted because you don't know what lies ahead. The only thing you know is the minutes in front of you. And it's evidence last week, right up to the last minute. We didn't know it was getting canceled till really late, but our guys have handled it well. They bounced back. I'm sure they'll be awesome today when we get to be around them, and looking forward to playing a really good Missouri team.
Chip Towers.
Yeah, Kirby, I'm curious about that, late call. I guess this is now the third time that you've had to, prepare for Missouri. I'm just wondering kind of on the fly what that meant Friday. Did y'all do anything as a result of that news, for Missouri preparation-wise, or is that just, okay, guys, everybody go home, or is that fall to the support staff? You know what I mean? The logistics of it.
I mean, we knew we were playing Missouri. We obviously thought we were playing them previously, and we prepared for them all the way through what was a Wednesday practice. Now, we didn't get to have the Wednesday practice previously, but a lot of the game planning was done. But you got to be careful because they've played, 3 games since then. We got more information, and dating all the way back to him at App State. I mean, there's a lot of information out there on him as a coach. We gathered that in the offseason because he was a new opponent in terms of offensively. So we've got a lot of history. We look at that information, but at the end of the day, it's about what we do, how we play, how we tackle, how we cover, how we communicate. Those things are all going to be really important, and that's independent of what they do. It's about what we do.
All right, let's go to Mark Weiser and Jake Rowe.
Kirby, I want to ask you, your former assistant, Shane Beamer, getting hired at South Carolina. How much pride do you take in part, playing a part in helping to develop a coach like Shane being able to move into a job like that?
Well, first off, I wouldn't take credit for. Shane's a good friend of mine, and we've been friends for a long time, and certainly appreciate what he did for the University of Georgia while he was here. He worked really hard and helped shape and build our program, and then went to Oklahoma and did the same, I'm sure, with Lincoln. He's done a good job where he's been. So I'm not taking a lot of credit for that. I mean, he's earned that opportunity on his own merit.
Kirby, concerning Jordan Davis and Richard LeCount, Kendall Milton, any chance they're able to come back this week and play with the games getting pushed back? Do you see them making it back before the end of the year?
We're hopeful on all three. All three are going to be able to go out and do some things in practice. Kendall's probably going to be in a black shirt. Richard's probably going to be in a black shirt, non-contact, but they're both going to be able to do some things. They progressed last week, hit some good GPS numbers, have been healthy and moving around. Jordan, it's kind of unrealistic to say a black shirt because of where he plays. There's not a lot of no contact in there, but he's going to be able to do more than he's done in the past weeks. And we're hopeful that all three guys are able to play, but we'll know a lot more after today.
Let me take just a minute. David Teal in Richmond, did you have a follow-up question on Shane Beamer?
I did. Kirby, as someone who took over a Power 5 job for his first head coaching gig, as you make that transition, what are the greatest challenges for a first-time head coach at the Power 5 level?
Being comfortable in what you want to do and understanding that it's your choice and it's your decision. For the first time, you're making the ultimate decisions, not some of the decisions, all of the decisions. And I think that you got to be comfortable that you're going to make good ones. You're going to surround yourself with people you trust and want to be there and that have the same goals and aspirations in mind that you do. And that may sound simple, but you can get overwhelmed because of the amount of information pouring in and the amount of people that want jobs and want an opportunity to be in the SEC. You got to sort through all that. And you got to get the right fit. And assembling the staff is the first step. And then also making sure your players and your current roster is developing as well.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Jed May and then Augusta Stone.
Hey, Kirby, I guess just one more follow-up on that. What are the conversations like with the former assistant when they're considering, a Power 5 head coaching job, whether it's, Shane Beamer, whether it was Mel Tucker, Sam Pittman, when you talk to those guys, what sort of questions do they ask you about that transition and what, I guess, do you tell them in response?
Just thankful for the opportunity. I always thank them for the work they've done for us. It's the coaching profession is not necessarily an easy work hours or an easy schedule, especially when full-time recruiting is going on. It can be very trying and tough on families and wives and kids. So I thank those guys for the service they provide and what they've done, and tell them that I'll help them any way I can in the future, because that's what I think you should do when you have someone gets another opportunity. You try to help them every way you can, and it's all about relationships in this business. And I want to have good relationships with those guys who've worked here before, and we've been able to keep it that way with the guys that have left here and gone on to head coaching jobs.
Hey, Kirby. What are some of the challenges with having to play Missouri now when their offense is playing really well and they've won 3 games in a row and have a bit more momentum versus a couple weeks ago when it was originally in the schedule and they hadn't really started clicking to the point that they are now late in the season?
Well, I think those challenges just come up with their offensive success because their quarterback has more experience. You're playing a guy that's got more experience. It's very similar to our offensive young players that are like week 4 or 5, they were making some mistakes where you hope in week 7, 8, 9, they're not making those same mistakes. So they're playing more efficiently. Their backs are really strong and physical. They got a big offensive line. People just aren't tackling as well right now across the country because as the season goes on, there's less and less contact in practices, more and more injuries, less and less depth. So when you see these games, you see some sloppy play, including ours. When you look back at South Carolina, it's probably our worst game from a tackling standpoint.
All right, let's go to Zach Klein and then Connor Riley.
Coach, you mentioned the new information you've gathered over the last few weeks. I know you wanted to play, obviously, mid-November, but as part of you or one specific part of that information, like, all right, I'm glad we know that now, 3 weeks later.
I don't know that I could say that. I think they changed. Like you kind of like us. I mean, you grow into who you are, and they're not the same every game. They use different groupings versus different teams, and I think the things they've done in the last 3 weeks have been successful for them, but they may have chose to do those against Vanderbilt or Arkansas or South Carolina based on another set of circumstances. And you don't ever know how they're going to play you, and they don't know how we're going to play them. So a lot of that you find out in the game and who can adjust well.
Hey, Kirby, 5 years ago today, you were formally introduced as the head coach of Georgia. Those first 5 years, how would you assess how you have done?
Grown a lot, learned a lot, trying to figure out what's important and what's most important every day. I came in with the mantra of what's important now. And I don't think that's changed. It's dealing with the issue or problem that's at hand, not trying to look too far down the road, and knowing that every day is going to be different. So those are things that I think day one to day now, whatever number it is, it continues to grow. And if you stop growing as a coach, then you need to probably give the business up, because we're always growing and adapting to the changes that have happened in college football.
All right, let's check with Jay Black and then Vance Levy.
Coach, does Drinkwitz's system compare to anybody that you've played this year?
I don't know. He uses, like everybody does, some plays that other teams have used. We call it, copycat plays, but he has a system that he believes in, and he does a really good job executing it. They have become very efficient in running the ball. They've got really good backs. But I can't say one team specifically. I certainly know that we'll see some overlaps from some of the teams that have had success on us, but that's what good coaches do.
Hey, Kirby, the minute this game got postponed, Danzler immediately worried about visions of Kansas City games where wind and snow and sleet. The weather's going to be a low of 28, high of 42 with some wind. What is the fine line as far as getting the players ready, but also not letting that become what they focus too much on?
Yeah, I think it's important to train and practice in the environment that you're going to play in. So as much as you can simulate that, you want to. Well, that's a tough simulation when you're not controlling the weather. And unfortunately, coaches don't control the weather. So we have to deal with what we have. You want to bring it up to your players and understand that you could be playing these conditions, which I think affect anytime you're transferring possession of the ball. But, it doesn't look like the outlook is going to be anything crazy. So, we got pretty similar weather here, and we want to be able to practice in it here.
Okay, let's go to Roddy, and then we'll see if Emily has a question.
Coach, with the SEC East title out of reach, do you use these last two regular season games and bowl game maybe to kind of prep for next year? I mean, you still have to win them. You still want to win them, but do you maybe get a little bit more, experimental, or try some things that questions that may have plagued you earlier in the season that you wouldn't have done? Do you maybe try some of that stuff in these last few games so that you have answers for next year?
Yeah, I just think that the goal is to win the game. It's not experiment time. And, we've been out of control of our destiny for a while. So there's not a lot we do differently to say, oh, I'm going to go do this or this. I think that you owe it to the best players on your team, not necessarily the oldest players on the team, but the guys that are the best players that practice the best and prepare well to go play the game and play the game to win. And that's what we want for our seniors. We want to send them out on a positive note, have them control what they can control, which is playing these games, and then hopefully reward them with a bowl game, a bowl opportunity. And you always want to play in the best bowl game you can against the best competition you can. And to do that, we've got to try to handle our business this week. That's really all I think about, is how are we at our best for each and every game this week, not anything towards next year.
Hey, Coach, can you speak as to the growth that you've seen from Azeez Ojulari? I mean, every time I watch him, in my opinion, he's just such a dog. I mean, it's just awesome to watch how much he has been able to do on the field, even though last season, I mean, obviously he had a pretty good year as well.
Yeah, he's a really hard worker since the time he's gotten here. He came in with an ACL injury, and he's worked so hard. He was one of the hardest workers we've ever had in terms of rehabbing that. He worked so hard that he put himself in a position to play in the bowl game his freshman year, against Texas, and thought he played really well during those practice weeks. We knew that we had a guy that was going to be a good football player. And the thing you love about Azeez, and I say it all the time, is he's the ultimate say less, do more. He says less and does more every day with his work habits and his work ethic, and he sets a really tremendous standard for our team. And he's like the example of, hey, if you go work really hard and you work on your trade and you get better and you take coaching, it can equal good production. And he's been able to produce because he's worked so hard in practice. The games come easy to him.
Hey, we've got time for two more questions. I'll open up to anybody.
Coach, this is Anthony again. As it pertains to the challenges of having early, signing day fall on a game week, do you already have an idea of how many of the kids you guys are recruiting that are going to take advantage of that? Or is that situation really kind of compromise everybody's ability to focus on the recruits?
Say that again, Anthony. You're asking about the early signing period affecting.
Yeah, I mean, if y'all for example, if y'all already have an idea of how many kids are going to take advantage of that, and if not, how much is the situation playing on the game we kind of compromise your ability to focus on the recruits?
Yeah, well, we never had it really fall where we're actually in a signing date week. We're usually practicing for a bowl game or something. Mm-hmm. This is unique. We do feel like we have a good understanding of who all is going to sign. I mean, you communicate and you do that. The problem is if you have a lot of mid-year enrollees, you have to have available spots. Well, that's controlled by a lot of things out of our control. Juniors early out declaring, and seniors that have an opportunity to stay. So when you start looking at the numbers, you can't fit more numbers into less spots you got, but you don't know how many spots you got. And you can say, well, you should know. I mean, no, you don't know this year because you don't know every senior that's decided to stay or juniors decided to stay. Their decisions are later and the mid-year decisions are earlier. And it's not I don't think that people understand the difficulty there. And it really only arises if you have an abundance of mid-year enrollees that want to come. And we got a unique year that we may have more guys wanting to enroll early than we've ever had. And you got to find the spots for those.
Thank you.
Hey Coach, kind of piggybacking on that, in terms of NFL teams and communication, you guys, for us that aren't, involved in it, are NFL GMs and stuff like that, are they constantly contacting you or other people on staff? Like how does that kind of communication start where they're trying to get background information on Georgia players?
Well, they have a scouting department and they have a process in which they go through. It's been different this year than ever before because they can't come to our universities and our practices, which is unfortunate. But due to COVID, they can't. So they've been doing those methods that they've always done. They just done it by Zoom. So they gather information from academics to strength staff to position coaches to player personnel guys. They have their sources they talk to within the organization to get the information that they want. And it's not as in depth as they'll get for the draft, but it's just general information that they want to achieve. As far as general managers, you know, as a head coach, I feel like I owe it to my juniors, and this year seniors, where most of the time seniors is not an option, but we've done a lot of digging, we've done a lot of referencing, and we want to get accurate information for our players and let them make an informed decision. So we feel like we have access to really good people in the NFL, whether it's general managers, advisory council, to gather information so those guys can make good decisions. And that process hasn't changed. It's only become a little more important because of the seniors wanting to get good information.
Thanks, Coach Smart. Thanks, everybody.